When we left Ethan, he was at rock bottom, a man who had lost everything he had ever built. The silence in his empty apartment was deafening, a constant reminder of the failure that clung to him like a shadow. But in that crushing silence, a tiny spark of defiance began to glow. He had two choices: let the darkness consume him, or fight his way back into the light. Ethan chose to fight, not with grand gestures or bold declarations, but with the simplest, most humbling of actions. His journey back didn't start in a boardroom. It started on the rain-slicked pavement of the city. The first job he took was washing cars at a local gas station. The suds and water ran over his hands that once signed million-dollar contracts, now scrubbing away dirt for a few dollars an hour. At first, the shame was a physical weight. He'd duck his head when he saw a familiar face or a luxury car that reminded him of his old life. He felt like a ghost, invisible and irrelevant. People looked through him, another faceless worker in a city full of them. Every splash of dirty water felt like a splash of humiliation on his face. He'd go home, his body aching, his spirit bruised, and wonder if this was all that was left for him. Was this the end of his story? Just a slow, painful fade into obscurity? The mirror reflected a stranger, a man he didn't recognize, his eyes hollow, his shoulders slumped. The temptation to give up, to just stop trying, was a constant whisper in his ear. After a few weeks of scrubbing windshields, he took on another job, delivering food on an old, rickety bicycle. Pedaling through the city streets, weaving through traffic, he saw the world from a completely different perspective. He was no longer looking down from a high-rise office. He was on the ground, part of the city's pulsing, chaotic rhythm. He delivered food to gleaming corporate towers, the very kinds of places he used to command, and to small, cozy apartments where families gathered for dinner. Each delivery was a small window into someone else's life, a fleeting connection in a disconnected world. He was tired, he was sore, but for the first time in a long time, he was moving forward, literally and figuratively. It was during these long days that he started to notice the people around him. The man who ran the corner newsstand, up before dawn every single day, greeting every customer with a genuine smile. The woman at the laundromat who worked 2 jobs to support her kids, her hands rough but her spirit unbroken. The young street musician who played his heart out for a handful of coins, his passion echoing through the subway station. They weren't powerful CEOs or wealthy investors, but they had a different kind of power, the power of resilience. The power of showing up day after day, no matter how hard it was. One afternoon, while delivering a pizza, he met an old man named Mr. Henderson. He was a retired carpenter with hands as gnarled as old tree roots. He saw the exhaustion in Ethan's eyes. "Tough day, son?" he asked, his voice raspy but kind. Ethan just nodded, too tired to speak. The old man smiled. "There's no shame in honest work," he said, looking at Ethan directly. "Shame is in giving up. Work, no matter what it is, gives you purpose. It reminds you that you can still build things, even if you're just building your way back to yourself, one brick at a time." Those words hit Ethan with the force of a revelation. One brick at a time. It wasn't about rebuilding his entire empire overnight. It was about laying one brick perfectly, every single day. The work wasn't a punishment, it was the tool. That night, Ethan found an old, dusty notebook and a pen. He sat down at his small kitchen table and started to write. At first, the words came out as a jumble of anger, frustration, and self-pity. He wrote about his failures, his regrets, the bitterness that had been poisoning his soul. But as he kept writing, something shifted. He started writing about his day. "Washed 17 cars today. My back hurts, but I earned enough for groceries." Then he started writing about his goals. Not huge, impossible goals, but small, achievable ones. "Tomorrow, I will do 20 deliveries. This week, I will save $10. Next month, I will find a better bicycle." The journal became his confidant, his strategist, his cheerleader. It was a place where he could be honest with himself without judgment. He started writing down quotes he heard, observations he made, ideas that sparked in his mind. He was documenting his comeback, creating a roadmap out of the darkness. The act of putting his thoughts onto paper gave them form and clarity. He was no longer just adrift, he was charting a course. He was beginning to believe in himself again, not the old arrogant Ethan, but a new, humbler, and far stronger version. He was rediscovering the man he was before the money and the success, the young man who was hungry, determined, and full of dreams. A few months passed. The city was transitioning from the heat of summer to the crisp air of autumn. Ethan's routine was set. Work, journal, sleep, repeat. It was grueling, but it was honest. One rainy evening, he was making his last delivery of the night to a small downtown apartment. He was soaked to the bone, shivering, and all he could think about was a warm shower. A young woman answered the door, took the food, and handed him the payment along with a generous tip. She looked at him, really looked at him, not as a faceless delivery guy, but as a person. "Thank you so much for coming out in this weather," she said with a warm, genuine smile. "You're a lifesaver. Please be safe on your way home." It was a simple exchange, lasting no more than 30 seconds. But for Ethan, it was everything. The tip was helpful, but it was her words, her kindness, that broke through the wall he had built around his heart. It was a simple acknowledgement of his effort, a moment of human connection. As he walked away from her door and back into the rain, he felt a strange sensation on his face. It took him a moment to realize what it was. He was smiling, a real, genuine smile, the first one that had reached his eyes in what felt like an eternity. In that moment, standing on a rain-swept sidewalk, Ethan understood. His failure, his spectacular fall from grace, it wasn't the end of his story. It wasn't a period at the end of a sentence. It was a comma, a pause. It was the moment the author takes a deep breath before the story truly begins. He realized that all this time, he had been looking at his past as a paradise he had lost. But now, he saw it for what it was. A chapter that was over. And this new chapter, the one filled with hard work, humility, and small moments of grace, was his to write. He wasn't the man who lost it all anymore. He was the man who was fighting to get it back, one brick, one smile, one rainy night at a time. His journey was far from over, but for the first time, he was excited to see where the road would lead. He was no longer just surviving. He was starting to live again. But just as the first rays of hope began to break through the clouds, a new storm was gathering on the horizon. A moment was coming that would test his newfound faith in a way he could never have imagined. Part 3 is where everything changes. It's the moment that tests his faith, the ultimate challenge that will determine if he truly is the man who refused to break. You absolutely don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in Ethan's incredible story.